The cliff gave way without warning. Marcus didn't scream. There wasn't time. Rock crumbled beneath his boots during the survey mission, and suddenly he was falling through Kepler 442b's violet twilight. His helmet display flashed red as the drop accelerated past survivable velocity. The canyon walls blurred into streaks of crimstone and shadow. This wasn't how exploratory geologists were supposed to die. His body slammed into something that wasn't ground. The impact drove air from his lungs, but instead of shattering against stone, he'd hit a sloped surface that gave slightly, redirecting his momentum. He tumbled, rolled, crashed through what felt like silk stretched over frameworks, and finally stopped against cold metal that hummed with energy. Marcus's visor had cracked. Atmosphere readings scrolled past his swimming vision. Breathable, surprisingly. He tasted copper and dust. When his eyes focused, he realized he wasn't in a canyon. He was inside something vast and architecturally impossible, lit by bioluminescent patterns that pulsed along walls of black metal and organic material fused together. The ceiling disappeared into darkness hundreds of meters above. "You fall like all the others." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, resonant and ancient, carrying harmonics that made his bones vibrate. Clumsy, desperate, alone. Marcus struggled to his knees, hand instinctively going to the plasma cutter on his belt. Standard issue, meant for rock samples, not combat. "Who's there?" "I am Vex Haratha." The shadows coalesced. What emerged made Marcus's rational mind stutter. The figure stood 3 meters tall, proportioned like something between human and mantis, with 4 arms and skin that seemed to be living obsidian etched with the same bioluminescent patterns covering the walls. Her face, distinctly her, despite the alien architecture of features, held eyes that burned with intelligence that predated human civilization. A crown of crystalline horns curved back from her elongated skull. "I am what your kind would call demon, what my kind calls queen, what this world calls prisoner." "Prisoner?" Marcus managed, still trying to process what he was seeing. His training said first contact protocols, but nothing in the manual covered falling into an underground alien palace. "For 1,047 of your years, I have been bound here." Vex Haratha moved closer with liquid grace. Her lower arms gestured to the enormous chamber, and Marcus saw now it was more throne room than cave. Ancient machinery lined the walls, dormant but radiating latent power, waiting for the foolish children of Earth to find this world, to send their scouts, to tip the first stone in an avalanche that will consume galaxies. "I'm just a geologist." Marcus stood carefully, pain radiating from his ribs. "I don't know what you think I am, but you are human." Vex Haratha's voice dropped to something almost gentle, which somehow made it more terrifying. "That is enough. Your species carries a signature in your genetic code, a marker placed there by the architects before your ancestors left the trees. They made you weapons without you knowing. Made you the key that would one day open my cage." Marcus's hand tightened on the plasma cutter. "That's impossible." "Is it?" She gestured with her upper right arm, and a holographic display burst to life between them. Marcus saw star systems, trade routes, species he'd never encountered in the Exploration Corps databases. The architects seeded Earth 4 million years ago. They encoded your DNA with a failsafe, a lock and a key combined. When humans achieve space flight, when you reach certain worlds, your mere presence would trigger ancient systems. You are opening doors you don't understand, human. Doors that were sealed for reasons your species never learned. The hologram shifted, showing massive vessels, battles that consumed solar systems, and at the center of it all, beings that looked like Vex Haratha. My people ruled the outer spiral once. We were called the Velokarath, the beautiful devouring. We were unstoppable, until the architects imprisoned our queens on dead worlds and encoded the keys to our release in a species they created specifically for that purpose. You. Marcus's mind raced. Why? Why would they do that? Because the architects are patient beyond measure, and they knew that any species capable of reaching these prison worlds would be advanced enough, numerous enough, aggressive enough to serve their true purpose. Vex Haratha's eyes brightened. The architects want war. They want the Velkaroth to rise again and clash with whatever civilizations have grown strong in our absence. They are gardeners, human. They prune the galaxy every few million years, using us as their tool. You're lying. But Marcus's voice lacked conviction. The pieces fit too well with the anomalies the Corps had found. Ruins on worlds that should be lifeless, genetic markers in humanity that geneticists couldn't explain, the way certain ancient artifacts responded only to human touch. Am I? Vexaratha extended her lower left hand. In her palm materialized a small crystal that pulsed with light matching Marcus's heartbeat. Your presence here has already begun the awakening. The seal weakens with every breath you take in this chamber. In hours, it will fail completely. In days, my people will know I am free. In months, the Velkaroth fleets will begin reclaiming what was ours. The Architect's game begins again, and your species has just guaranteed its own extinction by doing what you do best, exploring where you don't belong.
Marcus raised the plasma cutter.
Then I destroy you here. Vexharatha laughed, a sound like wind through a cathedral. You cannot. The seal protects me until it fully breaks. And even if you could, there are 99 other queens imprisoned on 99 other worlds. Humans have found 12 already. Your people opened those cages without knowing. The queens are waking Marcus of Earth. The only question is what you will do with the hours before the seal breaks and I am free to rejoin them. She moved to a throne that seemed grown from the floor itself and sat with terrible grace. Will you run? Try to warn your species of the doom they have triggered? Or will you stay and learn the truth of what you are, the unwitting assassins of galactic peace, the agents of entities who view civilizations as crops to be harvested? Marcus's finger hovered over the cutter's activation stud. The device could slag through rock. Against an alien queen protected by technology beyond human understanding, it would be useless. But doing nothing wasn't an option. Tell me how to stop this, he said quietly. There has to be a way. Vexaharatha's expression shifted into something that might have been respect. Now you ask the right question. Sit, Marcus of Earth. We have hours before the seal breaks. Let me tell you about the ancient feud between the Architects and the Velkaroth. Let me tell you about the role your species was designed to play, and then perhaps we will discuss whether demons and humans might find common cause against the gardeners who planted you both. Marcus lowered the cutter but didn't holster it. He moved to the base of the throne, every instinct screaming that he was making a terrible mistake. But Vexaratha was right about one thing. He needed to understand. And if what she said was true, humanity needed to know it wasn't just explorers finding new worlds. They were pawns in a game that had been playing out since before the first human looked up at the stars and wondered what lay beyond. The bioluminescent patterns pulsed brighter, and Vexaratha began to speak of wars that made human conflicts look like children's squabbles, of the Architect's grand design spanning epochs, and of the terrible choice that was rushing toward Marcus with every passing second. The seal continued to weaken, bleeding away. And somewhere above his survey team would be searching for his body, unaware that the fate of multiple civilizations might rest on the conversation happening in an ancient prison beneath an alien world. Vexaratha's upper hands gestured, and new holograms materialized showing Earth itself, overlaid with patterns of light Marcus had never seen. Your planet is a weapon forge, she said. Every human born adds to an army the Architects have been building for 4 million years. Let me show you what you really are. The revelation that followed would change everything Marcus thought he knew about humanity's place in the cosmos. And in the back of his mind, a clock was ticking down to the moment when one of the galaxy's most dangerous beings would be free, and he would have to decide whether that made him her enemy, her ally, or something far more complicated in a war between gods. Marcus sat on cold metal and prepared to learn truths that might destroy him. The seal hummed its countdown. The demon queen smiled with teeth that caught the light like blades. And the ancient feud, dormant for a millennium, began to wake. First, Vexaratha said, I will tell you about the harvest. Then you will understand why the Architects fear what humans in Velkaroth might become if we ever stopped being their puppets and started pulling our own strings. The hologram shifted again, and Marcus saw civilizations rising and falling like wheat before a scythe. He forced himself to watch, to listen, to understand. Because if there was even a chance of stopping what was coming, it would require knowing the enemy. All of them, even the ones who had created humanity itself. The demon queen spoke, and the human listened. And in the depths of an alien world, the first threads of an impossible alliance began to form in the shadow of an ancient prison that was about to break open and change the galaxy forever. The story of how a man fell off a cliff and met a 1,000-year demon who was also an alien queen, and how together they might just derail the plans of beings who treated entire species as game pieces, had only just begun. But its ending would be written in the stars themselves, in blood and fire and the desperate gamble of unlikely allies against impossible odds. The seal pulsed, weakening. Time was running out. Vexaharatha's fingers traced patterns in the air, and the holograms transformed into something that made Marcus's blood run cold. The Architects are not your creators, human. They are your editors. They took primitive hominids and rewrote your code to serve a single function. to be the universal key that opens any lock they choose. Your DNA responds to ancient technology across the galaxy. Doors that haven't opened in eons recognize your genetic signature and yield. Do you understand what this means? Marcus did, and the implications were staggering. Every world humanity colonizes, every ruin we explore, you are opening things that were meant to stay closed, Vexaratha finished. Not just Velikaroth prison worlds. There are worse things sealed away in this galaxy. Weapons. Plagues. Entities that make my people look benign. The architects scattered keys throughout your genetic code, and every human carries some fragment of the master lock. When enough of you gather in one place, when you touch the right artifacts, the seals respond. They open. She stood and moved to one of the walls, placing a hand against the black metal. The bioluminescence flared brighter. This prison was designed specifically to respond to human presence. The architects knew that eventually your species would develop spaceflight, would explore, would find worlds like this one. They programmed you with insatiable curiosity, the same trait that makes you such effective keys. You cannot help but explore, cannot help but touch, cannot help but open. Then how do we stop it? Marcus rose as well, moving closer despite every survival instinct telling him to maintain distance. If we're programmed to do this, how do we break the programming? Vexaratha turned, and for the first time Marcus saw something in her alien features that he recognized, frustration mixed with a kind of desperate hope. That is the question that kept me sane for 1,000 years of imprisonment. The architects are brilliant, but they are not infallible. They made one critical error in their design. What error? They made you adaptable. She gestured, and the hologram shifted to show human history compressed into moments. Tool use, agriculture, industrial revolution, spaceflight, all in a rapid cascade of innovation. The architects programmed you with drives and capabilities, but they underestimated how quickly humans evolve, how rapidly you change not just biologically but culturally, technologically. You were supposed to reach this world 300 years from now, when the Velikaroth had been imprisoned long enough to be desperate, fragmented, easy to manipulate into the conflict the architects desired. But you came early, and that changes everything. Marcus felt pieces clicking together in his mind. Because you're not what they expected you to be. Exactly. Vexaharatha's expression shifted into something almost like satisfaction. I have been alone with my thoughts for over a millennium. I have had time to examine every aspect of this prison, to study the technology the architects used, to understand their methods. They imprisoned me to use me later as a weapon against whoever rose to power in my absence, but they never considered that a Velikaroth queen might spend 1,000 years learning to think like an architect, learning to see the patterns in their grand design. She moved to the center of the chamber where an ornate structure rose from the floor, part machinery, part sculpture, pulsing with the same energy as the walls. This is the heart of the prison, the sealed generator. When it fails completely, I will be free, but I will also be bound by architect programming embedded in my own genetic code. They did not just lock us away, Marcus. They rewrote us just as they rewrote you. When I wake fully, I will feel an overwhelming compulsion to rejoin my people, to rebuild the Velikaroth Empire, to wage war against the civilizations that have risen in our absence. I will want this, even though I know it serves only the architect's purposes. Then don't let it fail. Marcus approached the seal generator. If breaking it means you become their puppet, keep it active. Stay imprisoned. Vexaratha's laugh was bitter. The seal responds to human presence. Your DNA is the key that turns the lock. The process began the moment you fell into this chamber. I cannot stop it any more than I can stop my own heartbeat. Neither can you. The seal will fail within 4 hours. That is inevitable. Then what's the point of telling me any of this? Marcus felt anger rising at the architects, at Vexasaratha, at the entire impossible situation. If we're both just playing out roles in someone else's script, because there is a third option. Vexharatha moved to stand before him, all forearms spread in a gesture that seemed both threatening and supplicating. The architects programmed the seal to fail when exposed to human DNA, but they did not account for what might happen if human and Velikaroth worked together to modify it, rather than simply waiting for it to break. The technology here is ancient and powerful. With your genetic signature and my knowledge of architect systems, we might be able to reprogram the seal. Not to keep me imprisoned, but to free me without triggering the architect conditioning. Marcus stared at her. That's possible? I do not know. She lowered her arms. But it is the only chance either of our species has. If I wake under Architect control, I will help destroy your people. If you leave me here and flee, I will wake anyway, and the outcome will be the same. But if we work together, if we combine human adaptability with Velkaroth knowledge, we might break free of the script the architects wrote for us. We might become the first pieces on their board to move ourselves. The seal pulsed, brighter now, clearly degrading. Marcus could feel it in his bones, a resonance that seemed to respond to his very presence. How long would this take? Hours. We would be working against the degradation, trying to rewrite ancient code while the system actively fails around us. It may be impossible. Even if we succeed, there is no guarantee the reprogramming will work as intended. I might wake as something neither of us expects. I might wake worse than the architects intended. Or you might wake free. Marcus made his decision. The rational part of his mind screamed that this was insane, that trusting an alien demon queen was suicidal. But the same instinct that made humans explore, that drove them to reach for the stars despite knowing the void might kill them, told him this was right. Show me what to do. Vexaretha's eyes blazed brighter.
You understand the risk? If this fails, you will likely die.
If it succeeds, you will have freed one of the beings your kind was designed to unleash on the galaxy. Your people may view you as a traitor. My people are already in danger, Marcus said. You said 12 prison worlds have been found. 12 queens waking up. Even if I died here, even if you stayed sealed, the others are already loose. At least this way, maybe one queen wakes up free of architect control. Maybe that's enough to change the outcome. Perhaps. Vexharatha moved to the seal generator and began touching panels with a speed and precision that spoke to intimate familiarity with the technology. Or perhaps we will simply create a different catastrophe. But you are right about one thing. Doing nothing guarantees disaster. Action at least offers the possibility of something new. She gestured Marcus closer. Place your hand here. The system needs to read your genetic signature continuously while I work. This will be uncomfortable. Marcus placed his palm against the designated panel. Immediately, pain lanced up his arm as the ancient machine began sampling his DNA, reading the keys the architects had written into humanity's code. He gritted his teeth and stayed still. Vexaratha's 4 hands moved in complex patterns, manipulating controls both physical and holographic. She spoke as she worked, her voice taking on a rhythmic quality that might have been prayer or programming language. The architects wrote their commands in layers. Surface level, the seal recognizes human DNA and begins to fail. Deeper, my own genetic conditioning activates when the seal breaks. We must reach beneath both layers and rewrite the core function. Transform the key into a tool that serves neither architect nor Velkaroth interests, but our own. The pain in Marcus's arm intensified. His vision blurred. How did you figure this out? 1,000 years of imprisonment focuses the mind wonderfully. Her hands never stop moving. I have examined every atom of this prison, tested every theory. I knew eventually humans would come. I hoped the one who found me would be foolish enough to help rather than simply fleeing. You exceed my expectations, Marcus of Earth. You may be the most dangerously optimistic being I have encountered. Optimism is part of the programming, remember? Marcus forced the words through clenched teeth. Architects made us unable to see impossible odds and turn back. Then let us use their weapon against them. Vexharatha's voice carried fierce satisfaction. The seal is degrading faster now. We have perhaps 3 hours. I am going to show you patterns. When I do, you must think them, project them. The machine reads not just your DNA, but your neural patterns. It is calibrated to recognize human consciousness. We will use that connection to inject new instructions into the core code. She showed him the first pattern, a geometric impossibility that hurt to perceive, angles that existed in more dimensions than his brain could process. Marcus focused despite the pain, despite the wrongness of it, and thought the pattern as hard as he could. The seal generator screamed, metal shrieked. The bioluminescent patterns throughout the chamber strobed in chaotic rhythms. Good, Vexaretha said calmly. We are breaking the first layer. 17 more to go. Try not to die before we finish. Marcus laughed despite himself, a slightly hysterical sound. Here he was, hundreds of meters below an alien planet's surface, helping a demon queen reprogram her prison while his arm felt like it was being consumed from the inside out. The Exploration Corps training manual definitely hadn't covered this scenario. Vexaratha showed him the second pattern, then the third. Each one was worse than the last. Each one fought against human perception like oil resisting water. But Marcus held them in his mind and pushed them through the connection. The generator responded, its systems shifting and reconfiguring in ways that would have fascinated the Corps' tech specialists and probably driven them mad trying to understand. "You are stronger than expected," Vex Haratha noted after the 8th pattern. "Most beings would have lost consciousness by now." "The human capacity for enduring absurdity is remarkable. We're good at suffering for stupid reasons," Marcus managed. His entire body felt like it was vibrating at frequencies that shouldn't exist. Might as well suffer for a smart one. "Is this smart, though?" For the first time, Vex Haratha's voice carried doubt. "I am ancient and powerful. You are young and fragile. When I wake free of the Architect's control, I may still choose to wage war on your kind. Not because I am compelled, but because I decide the Velkaroth deserve to reclaim what was stolen from us." "Have you considered that possibility?" Marcus had. "Yes. But I've also considered that a queen free to make her own choices might choose differently than one following someone else's script. That's a better gamble than guaranteed destruction." "Gambling with civilizations." Vex Haratha sounded almost amused. Very human. The 14th pattern nearly broke Marcus. His nose began bleeding, the blood floating away in the chamber's strange gravity before evaporating into mist. His hand was numb, his arm cold up to the shoulder, but he held the pattern, held it, and pushed it through until the generator accepted it with a sound like reality tearing. "3 more, Vex Haratha said. "The final layers are the strongest. They contain the core directives that bind both your kind and mine. Break these, and we break the chains the architects forged. Fail, and the backlash will likely kill you and damage the seal beyond our ability to repair. I will wake as intended, and your last act will be to unleash exactly what the architects desired." Encouraging. Marcus focused despite the pain, despite the exhaustion. "Show me 15. She did. The pattern was beautiful and terrible, a crystallization of pure control, the essence of what it meant to be a tool wielded by greater powers. Marcus saw in it the architect's contempt for both human and Velkaroth, the cold calculation that viewed entire species as resources to be deployed and discarded. He rejected it with every fiber of his being. The pattern twisted in his mind, transformed by his refusal into something new. Not the opposite of control, but the assertion of choice, of autonomy, of the right to determine one's own path, even in the face of cosmic powers that said otherwise. The generator convulsed. Cracks spread through the ancient metal. Energy arced between the walls. The seal's degradation accelerated catastrophically. 16, Vex Haratha commanded, her voice urgent now. "Quickly!" Marcus barely had time to perceive it before pushing it through. The pattern felt like despair crystallized, the acceptance of fate, the belief that fighting predetermined outcomes was futile. The architects had encoded this into both species, humans believing they explored of their own free will, Velkaroth believing they ruled because they were superior, neither recognizing they were following scripts written eons ago. Marcus transformed it into defiance, into the human capacity to look at impossible odds and say, "Try me anyway," into the stubborn refusal to accept that the future was written, that choices didn't matter, that individual actions couldn't cascade into universe-changing consequences. The generator shrieked. The seal was failing rapidly now, barely minutes from complete collapse. Vex Haratha worked with desperate speed, her 4 hands moving too fast for Marcus to follow. "The final pattern," she said. "This one contains the deepest binding. It is the architect's masterwork, the code that ensures we cannot recognize we are controlled, cannot work together to escape, cannot imagine futures beyond those they have designed for us. If you break this, you break their fundamental hold on both our species. But the feedback will be catastrophic. You will not survive it." Marcus met her burning eyes. "Will you? Free, I mean. Will you wake up able to choose? I do not know." "Good enough." He smiled through bloody teeth. "Show me." Vex Haratha hesitated for just a moment. Then she showed him the final pattern. It was everything. Every limit, every constraint, every invisible wall that prevented beings from seeing beyond their predetermined roles. It was the cage that looked like free will, the script that felt like choice, the destiny that masqueraded as self-determination. It was perfect and absolute, and utterly inhuman in its precision. And Marcus of Earth, geologist, explorer, human being who had fallen into an alien prison and chosen to gamble everything on an impossible alliance, looked at that pattern and laughed, because he saw the flaw. The one thing the architects had never understood about the species they had tried to program into tools. Humans broke. They broke rules, broke systems, broke themselves. They took things that were supposed to work one way and made them work another. They were adaptation incarnate, chaos in biological form, and no amount of genetic programming could fully control something fundamentally defined by its refusal to be controlled. Marcus didn't reject the pattern. He didn't transform it. He broke it. The generator exploded. Energy tore through the chamber in waves that should have atomized everything organic. Marcus felt his body failing, cells burning, systems shutting down. But in that moment of catastrophic destruction, he also felt the seal shatter in the right way, breaking not into the carefully orchestrated failure the architects had designed, but into something wild and unpredictable and new. Vexaratha screamed, not in pain, but in liberation. 1,000 years of imprisonment ended not with the mechanical click of a lock opening, but with the sound of chains exploding into atoms. The Demon Queen rose free. The human who had freed her fell, and the ancient feud between architects and their pawns transformed into something neither side had anticipated, the moment when the pieces on the board stopped playing the game and started flipping the table. Marcus's last thought before darkness took him was that he hoped Vexaratha made it count, that freedom meant something, that this wasn't just one kind of doom traded for another. Then nothing. Then everything. Marcus's eyes opened to impossible light. He was lying on something soft that shouldn't exist in an alien prison chamber. His body felt different, wrong in ways he couldn't immediately articulate. Pain had been replaced by a strange numbness that extended beyond mere physical sensation into something deeper. "You are alive," Vexaratha's voice came from nearby. "Against all probability and several immutable laws of physics, you survived." Marcus tried to sit up and found himself moving too quickly, as if gravity had suggestions rather than commands. He was on a platform that seemed grown from the same material as Vexaratha's throne, and his body, his left arm was gone from the elbow down, replaced by something that pulsed with the same bioluminescence as the chamber walls, not mechanical, not organic, something between. "What did you do?" He stared at the replacement limb, watching light flow through patterns beneath translucent surface material. "I saved you." Vexaratha stood nearby, and Marcus noticed immediately that she looked different. The patterns on her skin were brighter, more dynamic. Her movements carried a fluidity that hadn't been there before. When the seal broke, the energy release should have killed you instantly. It nearly did. Your arm was destroyed completely, and the damage was spreading. I had seconds to act. She gestured, and holographic displays materialized showing biological diagrams Marcus recognized as human anatomy overlaid with alien structures. I used Velkaroth biotechnology to halt the cascade failure. Your body now contains elements of my people's regenerative systems. You are human still, but changed, enhanced. You will heal faster, live longer, perceive in spectrums you could not before. The alternative was death. Marcus flexed the new arm experimentally. It responded as naturally as the original, maybe more so. He could feel things through it. Temperature, texture, but also energy flows, electromagnetic fields, things he'd never sensed before. "So I'm part Velkaroth now?" "Approximately 7%, Vexaratha said. "Any more and the integration would have failed. Any less and you would have died regardless. It is enough to sustain you, not enough to change what you fundamentally are." He looked at her, really looked, and saw something he hadn't noticed in their earlier interaction. Her eyes held no trace of the glazed compulsion he'd feared, no hint of architect programming overriding her will. "You're free. Actually free. I am." Wonder and something like fear colored her words. For the first time in millennia, my thoughts are entirely my own. "The compulsions the architects wrote into my people's genetic code are gone. When I consider rebuilding the Velkaroth Empire, it is a choice I can examine rather than a drive I must obey. When I think of humanity, I am not overwhelmed with the urge to destroy or manipulate. I can simply choose." She turned away, forearms wrapping around herself in a gesture that conveyed vulnerability. "It is terrifying. My entire existence, I had purpose, certainty, destiny. Now I have only decisions and no guarantee any of them are correct. How do your people endure this? This weight of genuine choice?" Marcus stood carefully, testing his balance. "Badly, mostly. We argue, we doubt, we make mistakes. But we get to make them ourselves. That's worth something." "Is it Vexaratha spun back toward him? I am one queen freed from architect control. There are 90 others still imprisoned or already waking under their original programming. My people's fleets still exist in stasis, waiting for queens to claim them. The architect's plan continues despite what we have done here. What have we actually accomplished beyond our own liberation? We proved it's possible. Marcus moved to stand beside her, looking at the ruined seal generator. The architects made their programming seem unbreakable. We broke it. That matters. Does it? We are two individuals against forces that span galactic history. I am free, yes, but I am also alone. My people will not understand what I have become. They will see me as corrupted, damaged, possibly dangerous to the Velkaroth cause. And your people, she gestured at Marcus, will see you as the fool who freed their enemy. You will be tried as a traitor, assuming your people even believe your story. Marcus hadn't considered that. His survey team would have reported him missing. By now, the Corps would have search parties combing the area. When they found him, if they found him, how exactly would he explain any of this? Then we don't go back. Either of us, not yet. Vexaroth's head tilted in an expression he was starting to read as surprise. What are you proposing? You said 12 prison worlds have been discovered, 12 queens either freed or close to it. If they wake under Architect control, they'll start the war the Architects want. But if we can reach them first, if we can do to their seals what we did to yours, we cannot. Vexaratha cut him off. Each seal is unique, calibrated specifically to its prisoner and location. What worked here would fail elsewhere. And even if it were possible, we have no ship, no way to travel between stars, no resources beyond what exists in this chamber. What does exist in this chamber? Marcus looked around with new appreciation for the vast space. This wasn't just a prison. You said you studied the technology for 1,000 years. There must be something here we can use. Vexaratha was quiet for a long moment. Then she moved to one of the walls and placed all 4 hands against it. The bioluminescent patterns responded, spreading out in waves that illuminated sections of the chamber Marcus hadn't even noticed. The prison was built from a Velkaroth command ship. The architects did not construct new facilities, they repurposed what they captured. The ship's systems have been dormant for a millennium, but the core remains functional. Hope flared in Marcus's chest. Are you saying... I am saying that beneath this chamber lies a vessel capable of traveling between stars, armed with weapons that could devastate planets, and designed to respond to a Velkaroth queen's commands. Her eyes met his. I am also saying that activating it will send a signal across the galaxy announcing my freedom. Every Velkaroth fleet in stasis will begin waking protocols. Every architect monitoring station will know their plan has been compromised. And every human government will know that one of their explorers has allied with their designed enemy. Marcus processed the implications. So the moment we power up this ship, we start the war. Not start. Accelerate. The war is coming regardless. But yes, our actions would remove any possibility of subtlety or gradual escalation. It would be immediate, total, and catastrophic for unprepared civilizations caught in the middle. But we'd have a ship! Marcus grabbed onto the one advantage, a way to reach the other prison worlds. Maybe even a way to find and stop architect installations. We'd have a chance to fight back. We would also have target painted on ourselves visible from any point in the galaxy. Vexarathata withdrew her hands from the wall. The architects would hunt us. The Velkaroth would hunt us. Your own people would hunt us. We would be alone against the entire cosmic order. We're already alone, Marcus said quietly. Alone together, maybe, but alone nonetheless. The question is whether we do nothing and let the architect's plan unfold unopposed, or whether we fight even though fighting might make things worse. Vexaratha studied him with those burning eyes. You understand that my decision to be free, to reject my programming, does not automatically make me your ally against my own people? I could take the ship and still choose to rebuild the Velkaroth Empire. Free will means I can choose that. Yes. I could kill you right now, take your body back to your people as proof that I mean no harm, and use the goodwill to position myself advantageously for when the other queens wake. You could, Marcus agreed. I could do nothing at all. Stay here, keep the ship dormant, live out eternity in this prison-turned-sanctuary, and let the galaxy burn without my participation. That too. Then why are you not afraid? Vexharatha moved closer, looming over him with all her alien majesty and power. I am death incarnate to your species. I am every nightmare the architects programmed humans to fear about the Velkaroth. You should be running, fighting, anything but standing here calmly discussing our options. Marcus smiled slightly. Because I didn't free you from architect programming just so you could follow Velkaroth programming instead, I freed you to choose. If you choose to be an enemy, at least it'll be your choice. That's more honest than the alternative. Honest. Vexaratha tasted the word. Your people are even stranger than the architects anticipated. You value truth over survival. Sometimes, when it matters. Marcus gestured to the walls, to the ship sleeping beneath them. So what do you choose, Vexaratha? What does a 1,000-year demon queen freed from divine programming choose to do with genuine freedom? The alien queen was silent for what felt like an eternity. Then she moved to the center of the chamber and raised all 4 arms toward the ceiling. I choose chaos. I choose uncertainty. I choose to break the architect's carefully laid plans and see what grows in the ruins. I choose alliance with a species designed to be my enemy, because that is the most genuine act of rebellion I can conceive. Her voice rose, taking on resonance that made the chamber vibrate. I choose to wake the ship. I choose to fly to the other prison worlds. I choose to offer every queen the same freedom I have been given, knowing many will reject it. I choose war not against humanity, but against the architects themselves, though they are effectively gods and we are barely more than their tools. She looked at Marcus, and her expression was fierce and wild and utterly free. I choose poorly, human. I choose dangerously. I choose in ways that may doom us both and everyone we might have saved. But they are my choices, made with clear mind and full understanding, and that alone makes them sacred. Marcus felt something shift in his chest, something profound clicking into place. Then let's wake the ship. Let's break some architect plans. Let's see if we can convince some other queens that freedom tastes better than conquest. And when it all goes wrong, Vexaratha asked. When the architects crush us, when the Velkaroth hunt us, when your people disown you, then at least we went down swinging instead of playing our assigned roles like good little game pieces. Marcus extended his new arm, the bioluminescent patterns pulsing in rhythm with those on Vexaratha's skin. Partners in cosmic rebellion? Vexaratha stared at the offered hand for a long moment. Then she reached out with her lower right hand and grasped it. The connection felt electric, 2 species touching across a gulf the architects had designed to be unbridgeable, finding common ground in their shared refusal to be controlled. Partners, she agreed. Though I suspect we will both regret this arrangement before the end. Probably, Marcus said cheerfully, but we'll regret it together, and that's something the architects never anticipated, that their keys and their locks might decide to become builders instead. Vexaratha's laugh echoed through the chamber, wild and fierce. Then let us build, Marcus of Earth. Let us wake this ship and fly it into the face of our makers. Let us free queens and shatter seals, and make such chaos that the architects themselves wonder if their grand design was worth the trouble of species, too stubborn to stay in their assigned roles. She released his hand and turned to the walls, beginning the complex process of awakening systems that had slept for a millennium. Marcus watched, still processing everything that had happened. He'd fallen off a cliff as a simple geologist. He was rising as something new, part human, part Velkaroth, entirely committed to a cause that would probably get him killed. But as Vexaratha worked, and the ancient ship began to hum with returning life, as power flowed through conduits that had been dark for 1,000 years, Marcus felt something he hadn't expected. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy at being exactly where he was, doing exactly what he was doing, regardless of the consequences. This was what it meant to be truly alive, not following programming or destiny or divine plans, but choosing a path and walking it with eyes wide open, knowing the end might be disaster but walking anyway because the journey itself mattered. The ship woke fully with a sound like reality, remembering how to sing. The chamber transformed, walls becoming transparent to reveal the vessel's true scope, a warship designed to crack planets, now repurposed as a vessel of liberation. Vexaratha stood at what Marcus realized was the command throne, her posture regal and terrible and magnificent. The signal is sent. The galaxy now knows I am free. We have minutes before every power in the cosmos begins hunting us. Then we'd better get moving. Marcus moved to stand beside her, looking out at the underground hangar that had just revealed itself around them. Where to first? The nearest prison world is 4 light-years from here. A queen named Sakthrala, sealed beneath an ocean on a world your people call Eden's Promise. She was always the most ambitious of us, the most hungry for conquest. If we can free her and convince her to join our cause, we gain a powerful ally. If we fail, she'll be the most dangerous enemy imaginable, Marcus finished. Perfect. Let's start with the hard one. Vexaratha gave him a look that might have been respect, might have been exasperation, might have been a dawning realization that she'd allied herself with a madman. You are either very brave or very foolish. Can I be both? Marcus strapped himself into a seat that adjusted automatically to his hybrid physiology. Come on, Demon Queen. We've got a revolution to start and architects to disappoint. Time to show the galaxy what happens when the pawns decide to play their own game. The ship rose from the underground hangar with power that shook the planet's crust. Above, Marcus's survey team would be seeing impossible energy signatures. The Corps would be scrambling to understand. The architects would be recalculating their plans. And in the command throne of a warship that wasn't supposed to wake for 3 more centuries, a demon queen who had chosen freedom over programming and a human who had chosen alliance over fear, prepared to navigate waters no one had charted. The space between designed destinies and genuine choice, between ancient feuds and new alliances, between the roles they were supposed to play and the people they had decided to become. The ship broke atmosphere with a roar that announced to the listening cosmos a simple truth. The game had changed. The pieces were moving themselves now. And the architects, for the first time in their long manipulation of galactic history, faced opponents who refused to be predictable. Marcus watched stars streak past the viewscreen and thought about the cliff that had given way beneath his feet. The fall that had led to all of this. Sometimes the path to revolution started with a single step into empty air. Sometimes freedom began with hitting bottom and deciding to dig deeper instead of climbing back up to safety. Sometimes a man fell off a cliff and met a demon queen, and together they decided to rewrite the rules of the entire galaxy. The ancient feud was ending. A new war was beginning. Not between the sides the architects had chosen, but between those who would be controlled and those who refused that bargain at any cost. And somewhere in the void between stars, in the stolen warship carrying an unlikely alliance toward an impossible goal, 2 beings who had broken their chains prepared to offer that same freedom to anyone brave or foolish enough to grasp it. The story of Marcus and Vexaratha had only just begun, but its echoes would resound through the galaxy long after both were dust, a testament to what happened when beings designed as weapons decided instead to become something the architects had never anticipated. Partners. Friends.